Well, it looks like the ATF is back at it again, ladies and gentlemen. So I don't know how many of you remember the whole FRT trigger issue with the ATF. I'm not going to go into detail on it, but we have seen a lot of folks have ATF agents come to their house and say, hey, we know you have purchased this trigger. We're here to collect them.
There you go. Hey, sir, how you doing? I'm looking for Christopher Joust.
He's not here right now.
Okay. All right, cool. So my name's Mike. I'm with ATF. But you don't need to see my lottery tickets. I'm with ATF. All right. He's on a list of some devices that he purchased for firearms.
If he gets caught with it after this point, though, he's on notice as knowing that he's not supposed to have it. So.
Okay.
Who the f*** is that guy? Who the f*** is that?
Are you his father, or?
Yeah.
Can I get your name, sir?
Tell him I said I am his daddy.
Now, my recommendation, obviously, to everybody, if you ever get a knock on your door from an ATF, FBI, whoever, is, do you have a warrant? No? Okay, have a nice day. Goodbye. There needs to be no other conversation at that point. I'm sure they can sit there and lie to you and say, oh, if you don't talk to us right now, we may charge you. Don't worry about any of that. If they had something to charge you with, they would charge you with it. But a lot of these people have gotten these visits, and there have been some variations as far as these forced reset triggers. And in my opinion, I consider them still to be semi-automatic rifles if you look at the actual design. But all the ATF sees is, well, they can fire really fast now. So of course they classify them as a machine gun. We've made fun of them about this before, but let's do it again. You're calling a trigger a gun. That's what you're doing. So anyways, ever since those triggers came out, there have been a couple different replicas, and then there have been other ideas that have came out. And one of those ideas is something called a super safety. And it was created by Twin Bros LLC. It has been brought to our attention that the super safety are now deemed machine gun devices per ATF. The raid on Twin Bros LLC was over the super safeties and not for the pepper jacks. We are no longer allowed to sell super safety kits. We are sorry about all of the unfulfilled orders and will be refunding everyone who placed orders on those items.
It now appears that the social media platforms as well as all the websites for Twin Bros LLC are down. Their Twitter has apparently been deleted. What this means for customers that are trying to get refunds, customers have unfulfilled orders, or any of that nature, it's hard to tell at this time.
So here we get into the ultimate problem with the ATF. Congress makes laws, right? Not everyone is a fan of everything that they do. I am not a fan of the NFA. The fact that they can make you put in an application for a suppressor 9 months and then come back and say, oh, well, something went wrong, but just resubmit your application and it'll take another 9 months. That's outrageous to me. For something that takes, I don't know, 20 to 30 decibels off of the loudness of a gun, you've got that long of a process. It's crazy to me. But like I was saying, the problem with the ATF is that they can go around Congress and they can take a law that Congress has created, right? So let's say the NFA. In order to have a machine gun legally, you have to go through this process. You got to give them their fingerprints. You got to wait for them to twiddle their thumbs. And then if you're lucky, they'll say, okay, here's your tax stamp and you better not go across state lines or else we'll charge you with a felony. That's how that goes. What the ATF does is they look at one of these rules, let's say the NFA, and they say, well, this applies to it. Right? They're not taking the actual law at face value. And at face value, it'd mean a machine gun has the exact parts that a machine gun has to make it fire. No, they're saying, well, anything that has the firing rate of a machine gun, anything that is faster than semi-automatic, we're going to deem it a machine gun. And that's exactly the situation here. So, in my personal opinion, this is not due process. This is not Congress saying, okay, well, we've got to vote on this and we've got to see if this constitutes a machine gun. No, they're just saying, well, we looked at a YouTube video or something and we saw how fast it fires, so you can't sell these anymore. It's considered a machine gun. So I imagine y'all can kind of guess what this product does. It replaces your safety. And pretty much all this thing does is it pushes the trigger forward because the bolt is resetting the trigger every time it comes back and forth. So all it's doing is pushing the trigger forward. So once again, in my opinion, this is not a machine gun. This is still semi-automatic. But God forbid we have new technology in the firearm industry, right? The ATF has a problem with technology, even though most of their people there sit on computers all day and say, oh man, we saw a YouTube video of this super safety, so we got to go raid this place. So now we get to how many vehicles showed up at this raid, and it's astonishing. Anybody count how many vehicles there were? I counted 10. When are we going to have some sort of discussion in Congress and say if the ATF continues to create rules that undermines our lawmaking, we need to either punish them or abolish them? Like, seriously, for y'all in Congress, your job is to sit there and say, okay, yes on this law, no on this law, okay, we're not even gonna let this law get past the House. That's your job. How does it feel to have an agency who sits there and watches you and then says, well, we can make an interpretation on that law. Oh, well, we can make a rule on that law. I mean, seriously, if you really broke down the laws that Congress has made in regards to firearms, the ATF could legitimately ban or make a rule that bans all firearms based off of it, because it's all up to their interpretation. Now, look, I want to speak to the people who like gun control right now. One, I think you're extremely uneducated or you're just ignorant. And if it's the latter, do some research. If someone wants to get a gun in the United States, you do not have to look that hard. If someone wants to get a gun legally, it is a process that is not the easiest in the world. Now, if you're a person who's looking to commit crime with a gun, which option sounds better? So for the ATF, for Congress, who thinks, well, putting more gun laws into place is gonna help solve crime, you clearly don't have the ability to remove yourself from your nice loafers and put yourself in a criminal's shoes and say, okay, well, what does this say to criminals? I don't know. I keep going back to this thought process, but we've got so many issues in America right now. Child exploitation, human trafficking, border issues, the fact that there are so many veterans on the streets, veterans with PTSD who can't work a simple job, people going to the grocery store and not even being able to afford half of the groceries they could have 4 years ago. Those are legitimate problems, yet we are focused on this. I don't know about y'all, but when I have a problem in my life, I'm not looking at these small issues, right? Like most of you know that I've had some major back issues from rodeoing. When I have a flare up in my back, I'm not saying, oh man, well, the wheels on my truck look dirty today, I better go clean them. No, I'm focused on getting some physical therapy, chiropractor, maybe a deep tissue, whatever it may be. Why doesn't our government do that? Well, it's because they've got an alternative agenda that they aren't sharing with anyone, but that's pretty obvious.